Taylor Davis is joining us now, catcher for the Indianapolis Indians, my Indianapolis Indians. I've had some great interactions with Taylor, and listen, he's been a fan of the show. He said, let's hop on the show. And I said, absolutely, dude. This is invaluable. Let's get it rolling. Taylor, 4-day All-Star break, like we were just talking about before we started recording. How many hours of sleep you get per night with a 2-year-old at home?
Yeah. How long are these games? No, I've been getting some decent sleep. My wife is a saint, and she handles most of that for me. But yeah, it's I didn't get to hibernate like most of these guys did.
It seemed like most of the guys just fully unplugged for 4 days, right? As far as the guys I knew. So, I mean, most of them are younger. Most of them are able to just either go travel or just, legitimately hibernate, like you said. For you, it's almost like catching up with the family and making up for some of the busy time that you have, right? And how was that? And we talked about it before we started recording. An extra day, I believe, on the All-Star break. So how was that whole time off for you?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was awesome. And honestly, we got rained out Sunday before the break, and we were in Columbus. So I got home at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday to start my All-Star break. So that was pretty nice. But that was a great way to start the break. That's for sure. Did the zoo one day. I'll be honest with you though. The 4-day break was a little long. It felt odd. I don't know that I really minded. Like, I'm not going to complain about an extra day off, but it wasn't. I'm so used to the 3 days. That's just so standard. You have the All-Star break and the 2 days, in the only 2 days of the 365 with no sports. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, you've had time to build up that regimen too. It becomes muscle memory. 11 minor league seasons, parts of 4 major league seasons. We're going to play a game at the end. I teased to you. I'm still not going to tell you what the game is until we get to it. But, you have been through every stop of professional baseball. You've been in the Dominican Winter League. You've been from, the Cape to the Complex to AAA to the bigs here. I guess my first question for you is starting at the very top, and then we'll get into what's happened in your minor league career. But at the very top, when did you make your major league debut? Was that 2017 you made your big league debut? Did you cry?
Yeah, I actually got no. I cried, I think, when I called my parents. Well, I don't think I did cry when I called my parents, because I was so mad at them, because I didn't want to tell one before the other. So I think I called my dad like 2 or 3 times. He didn't answer. And I called my mom. I was like, hey, where's dad? Tell him to call me. And finally got a hold of him. But at that point, the emotion of telling them was gone. No, it was that, honestly, I tell people all the time, it was great. I'm so excited to be able to say for the rest of my life that I'm a major leaguer. But to make that phone call to my wife and my parents, and for my son to be able to say that I was a major leaguer, that's what I played for. That's what I did for. The memories that I make along the way, it definitely unforgettable. And funny thing, it's kind of full circle at this point, but I got called up the first time in Pittsburgh. I didn't make my debut there, but the first time I walked on a major league field with a major league uniform was in Pittsburgh. So that's kind of cool.
Can you describe kind of I guess what the difference is when you're taking the field for a major league? Obviously there's some very obvious differences, but what you're feeling internally, because that's the one thing that none of us will really ever be able to understand and be able to feel, or even just try to pretend we can, is what's the difference walking out between the lines of a major league baseball game versus, a minor league game that you were doing time and time and time again? What difference was that for you when you finally got to get out there and play the same sport, play the same game, do the same things, but just in a totally different setting and situation?
No doubt. I think one big thing, and I think this was a really cool part about me coming up when I did in 2017 with the Cubs when they were still winning. The big leagues is all about winning. There's nothing else that matters except for winning in the major leagues. In the minor leagues, there's other stuff that matters. The minor league teams are still trying to make money, so you're still doing random things that are throwing off the game. Everybody is trying to get to the next level. In the minor leagues, everybody is trying to get to the next level, no matter what level you're at. In the big leagues, there is no next level. There's Mike Trout, right? So nobody at that point is trying to go anywhere else. everybody is just trying to do everything they can to win. And that's not saying that guys aren't competing or trying to win in the minor leagues by any means. But I think there's a subconscious click there that, okay, like, let's focus, like, this is all that it's about. And I would say that's probably the biggest difference. And there is significant pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that matters is winning. So if you have a great day and you don't win, that was an unsuccessful day for the organization.
Yeah.
So, but at the same point, if you have a very unsuccessful day personally, but you win, it's a great day for the organization. I tell guys all the time, and I think the guys somebody made this comment in Chicago, like when because when I first got to Chicago, or when I was first signed, 2011. So like they were in the midst of this bad streak, and it went for, I think that 400 loss seasons in a row, something like that. It was bad, right?
That was Tony Campana really and company. Yeah.
Tony Campana, University of Cincinnati. So like I saw the shift from that to World Series champion in 16, and it was really cool to see. But one thing that the organization bought in on was figure out a way that you can help the major league team win today.
Yeah.
For a lot of guys, for a lot of players, that was doing everything that you needed to do that day to make sure you succeeded and helped your team win. Because if you didn't get hurt, if you didn't have to come out of the game early, if you were able to do all that, they didn't have to send a player from another level to you to totally screw up rosters and hurt somebody's playing time, yada, 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 right? So like they're very simple goals, but I think that got bought in, and that happens when teams start succeeding and things start going the right way, like it's a really fun thing to be a part of.
So I almost visualize it as a funnel that is turning into more of a cylinder here, because at the major league level, like what you're saying, the only goal is to win the baseball game. And there might be more of that team environment. And I know that there's still a team environment, A, in minor league baseball, B, in college baseball. Even when you get out to the Cape, there's some pride in being a Katuitt Kettler or a Brewster Whitecap here, but everybody's out there for themselves. I mean, like it is an individual thing. It is based on individual performance. So if you've got a guy in low A that went 4 for 5 with 2 pumps, but you lose 8-5,
you're taking that every day.
That guy, he just had a great day. You see it a little bit more in high school, and we just saw a first round pick opt out of a high school season. Do you feel like baseball is getting a little bit more individualized under Major League Baseball? Is that like what everybody craves, to have that team environment at the tippy top right now?
I don't know. I do think that it has become more individualized at the amateur levels, no doubt. I think in the minor leagues, like in that scenario that you brought up, you guys lose 8-5. Everybody could have done a lot of things the right way. Your pitchers could have all thrown the ball really well with a couple errors here or there, or a couple bad things that went your way. Maybe a couple guys made some adjustments that were really positive, and ergo, the entire day is a win for the team. Whereas in the big leagues, guys make huge strides. Some great balls are put in play. You lose 10-9 in the 19th.
Yeah.
You lose 10-9 in the 19th.
Yeah.
It was an unsuccessful day. And I think that that's a cool and a not cool thing, Yes. But I think that you're absolutely right that starts at the amateur levels. And it's why, like, creating these environments, these competitive environments as a team is an important thing to do at the younger ages, because when you get to these points, it's about getting to the major leagues.
Yes.
At some point, it's no longer about winning as a kid. It's about getting to the big leagues. And then when you get back to the big leagues, now it's back to winning.
Right.
It's full circle.
It really is full circle. And I was going to ask you that specifically, just on how you balance that yourself as a guy that's, been up and down from the big leagues to AAA on several occasions. How do you balance the idea of, okay, I just need to stay within myself and try to play a team's game, but at the same time, not press too much to try to get yourself back up to the big leagues? Like, how do you not chase those individual results when, you can just tell from talking to you that you're a team guy, especially as a catcher? How do you balance that?
So one thing, and this is going to be a strange transition here, but let me start by saying one of the things that I feel is the most different about my job my 9 to 5 than most people's 9 to 5 is the communication. Most people that have a job have an understanding of what it takes to get promoted, get demoted, get fired, get hired. I have no idea any of those things. And I'm not saying there's not a reason for that. I somewhat understand that you can't tell a kid that if you hit 300 with 30, you're going to be in the big leagues, because that just might not be the case.
Yeah.
And I understand that. So because of that, I understand that I really don't have an understanding of what the current situation of the team needs and the current needs of that general manager. Therefore, I have to totally rely on the fact that I know that I'm doing everything I can that day to help the team win and get to the big leagues. And if I can do both of those things and have fun, because I've always said, the one thing I told Jack, the one thing that I've told my wife, everybody, is that I like, first and foremost, it's about having fun.
Yes.
And a lot of people say, I want to, like, if I don't enjoy playing this game, there's too many people that would want to do it, yada, yada, yada. I don't really believe that. I think that we are a special group of athletes at this level. Now, let me also state that I self-proclaimed most athletic, unathletic person you'll ever meet.
No, dude, I've seen that leg kick. You're a freak.
See, I'm telling you, but it's sneaky athletic in an unathletic body. It's what. Well, tailgate athlete within 30 yards. But what I mean by that is that I do think that, like, sure, a bunch of people would want to play, but I do think that this is a high level of talent that it takes to get here and get to the next level. But what I do think is that there are a lot more people that would have fun doing it. There's a bunch of people in independent baseball that would have fun being where I'm at. So if I'm not going to have fun doing it, I want somebody else to have fun doing it.
That was going to be the one. Oh, sorry to cut you off. That was just going to be the one thing that I was going to ask you was because, the grind to climb up the minor leagues is brutal. And I mean, Jack and I have talked to so many different players that have gone through it. There's awesome experiences along the way, like, and then there's obviously some challenging spots. But once you get to triple, it's a different level, right? I mean, the stadiums are nicer, the crowds are bigger. You're obviously making a little bit more money. I will still maintain that it's not nearly enough, but it's a little bit more, and you can start to kind of figure out, and you're also, knocking on the doorstep of the big leagues. How much more enjoyable is it playing in AAA? I get to see Indy, with what Jack's experiencing. I mean, that's a really cool environment. How much cooler is it and more enjoyable at AAA? And do you almost feel like it's its own career in itself, given just how much bigger it is at that level?
No doubt. The cities are definitely, in my opinion, the cities are cooler for the most part. Stadiums are better, no doubt. Yeah. Let's say this: the cities are more notable. Whether they're better or not, I'll let somebody else be the judge. But yeah, I mean, I have said for a long time, I would do this for till I was 50. I don't, if somebody would let me do this for as long as I could, I would. I think that one thing I'll tell you is that I really believe that the housing getting paid for minor leaguers, is an absolute game changer for multiple reasons. And really, financially is the least of them, but it helped the player the most. There was so much stress incurred on us to try to find housing that one thing, here's me going off on a tangent again. One thing that Joe Madden said that I loved was, like, his whole concept of managing was that he wanted to take care of everything off the field, so that he wanted to make sure that everything was taken care of off the field. So off the field in Chicago, we had any resource you needed, because the only goal was to get on the field and win, right? And so, like, I will happily take that. But one of the things that they started asking about in a project that they actually worked on a few years ago, like, they had asked me about it. They said, "Hey, what's the most stressful thing for a player?" And I said, without question, it's housing. And I was just telling Jack, it's the signing the leases and having to break the lease if you need to leave. It was really difficult to do all that. So, like, the stress of doing that and doing it in 3 days before a season starts. So taking that away, I think, is going to make baseball in general, minor league baseball in general, way more enjoyable for a lot more people. They're not thinking that they can't pay their rent at home because they have to pay rent on the road. They can now make sure that everything's okay. But no doubt is it a game changer to be in these cities with these stadiums. the capability to pretty much walk to every stadium. You're not paying for Ubers to get places. You're not waiting on the team bus for a lot of places. You know, you're able to walk to lunch. You know, it's really nice. Have a normal day somewhat.
So Taylor Davis, 711 minor league games. You have to have a horror story, a travel horror story with minor league baseball. I've got one, and I have been in it since 2019. So I am an infant compared to 711 minor league games. What's your minor league travel horror story?
Man, I've got a few minor league horror stories. Travel story. We had in Indy this year.
Oh yeah.
We had, this is probably up there at this point. We had a bus breakdown. We had I think it was a 4-hour or maybe a 9-hour drive home that turned into an 18-hour drive home. The bus broke down. One of the buses waited for us. We got fixed, got to the other bus and broke down again. Then everybody had to get on one bus. That was a mess. But I don't know if you know this part. I think I told you this, but the next road trip, we bussed again. That same bus driver broke down.
No.
Again.
No, dude. You didn't tell me
can't make
that.
it up.
Oh.
You can't make it up. It happened. It's pretty unbelievable. I was on it. I gotta admit, I don't want to say there's a common denominator here because there were a bunch of us on both, all right? But good Lord, that was some bad luck.
Did they retire the bus?
Dude, they fixed it and he actually made it home. One person got on the bus. One person. So he came and met us like a few hours later. We pulled off or something and they were like, hey, the bus is actually going to be here if anybody wants to get on. And I laughed at him. Come on. You are out of your mind if you think I'm getting back on that bus. And sure enough, one guy got on.
Oh, dude. All right. So you are the self-proclaimed mayor of Des Moines, Iowa. You were in Iowa 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Take me behind the mayor of Des Moines story here.
Well, let me start with I have one record for the Iowa Cubs. And I said, you know, in my 5th year, I was like, all right, I got to be coming on something. I don't know what. I've got to have some record, like most days on the roster, anything. So I asked the PR person, and she came back. She was holding a piece of paper, and she was laughing. She's like, yeah, you actually do. You're right. And you're like more than double the next guy. It's like, sick. What do we got? Grounded into double plays. Not sick.
Oh.
So the mayor of Des Moines, so after my 3rd year in Des Moines, I made a comment to somebody that I should be getting my Letterman's jacket. And so that offseason, that would have been the offseason of 17, somebody mailed me a varsity letter, an Iowa varsity letter and a certificate. So when I came back for my 4th year, I was like, well, I'm back for my 4th year. I guess I should just run for mayor.
Yeah.
And somebody said something. Long story short, I ended up like doing some research, and I actually considered running for mayor. I had an apartment there. I had a residence there. I could have gotten an ID there. The only reason I didn't do it was because the taxes in Iowa are really bad. And I told Jack, I'll do a lot of stuff for a joke. I'll do stuff to be funny, but I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay anybody.
Yeah. So on that topic, you haven't stolen a base since 2016, which is when Jack and I graduated from high school. Yes. So it's been a while. You haven't tried since 2018. Just out of the blue here, I just have a question: will you try this year? And can you give the Just Baseball show a stolen base? And if so, I think that would be the greatest gift in the history of Just Baseball.
Yeah, I might have to try just for Mike Roberts. I will.
Yeah, and in honor of Mike Roberts.
In honor of the great Mike Roberts, I may have to do it. We've actually had conversations about it this year with my first base coach because of Mike Roberts, because everybody loves him so much. And he goes, dude, do you understand how excited he would be if you stole a base? Do you know what would go through his mind if you stole a base? So it may have to happen.
So for context for those listening, Mike Roberts is I mean, longtime manager, father of Brian Roberts, who I'm sure most of the people listening to this podcast will remember, all-star, second baseman for the Baltimore Orioles and then the Yankees for a cup of coffee, but we pretend that never happened. But the best thing about Mike Roberts is, college coach, but then on the Cape was, is still a legend there. I'm going to go see him in about an hour or two after we finish this interview, but also was base running an advisor for the Chicago Cubs for a while now with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you got to know him really well with the Chicago Cubs. His number one thing is base running. And I've had a few friends go through the Katuitt Kettleers and, their first week there, they're like, dude, I'm freaking base running on the Cape. This is not what I came here to do. I came here to hit bombs, not base run. And I knew they were super pissed, but by the end of the summer, they loved Mike Roberts. I'm going to go tell him as well that I asked you to steal a base. So now I'm going to get him on this too. And you're going to have no choice but to try to bolt because that's his thing.
The bigger issue here is I don't know who's going to hit for me. So I got to get on first base before I can steal, unless I finish the year. And wasn't it the Atlantic League that you're able to steal first?
I think so.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think last year, I don't think they're still doing it, but if any ball that was dropped, you were able to try to run to first base and he could throw you out. But if I've said this in the past, what if you're in, so see, this is a winning big league question. Game 7 of the World Series, you got Terrence Gore's hitting.
Yes.
There's a guy on third base. There's a ball that he knows is going to be over everybody's head.
Swing.
2 strikes, swing and go.
Yep. I've thought about that. Absolutely. Swing and go.
So it's 100%. So this is basically the legal form of that.
Yeah. I'm in, man. Hey, I want to ask you about the mentorship side of this. Because, obviously you've been around, you've seen so much young talent. We've talked about the friendship that you formed with Adley Rutschman. I think about a lot of the young catchers with the Pirates. I think about a lot of the young catchers with the Cubs when you were coming up. How big of a deal to you is the mentorship aspect to minor league baseball? Taking these guys under their wing or under your wing and just teaching them anything you possibly can. And, picking up some of that youthful energy. And you still have plenty of youth. You are exuberant with youth, but just picking up some of that, newfound love for the game from a guy like Adley or a guy like Henry Davis, but also giving them some advice that they probably couldn't get from anybody that they have met on these stops.
Very similar to something that we talked about before I got on the show, but just trying to give them a different perspective, give them a different way of thinking, maybe somewhere that, I had been places that some of these guys haven't been yet. Shoot, there's guys on this team that I've been in AAA longer than they've been in pro ball.
Yeah.
So I think that, some of that comes into play. I enjoy that part of it. I really like just trying to help people in general, help make people better. And, something that, early in my career, I didn't play a ton early in my minor league career. And something that I've come to realize is that I always wanted to be a good teammate. For some reason, the first time I found out I wasn't going to be playing very much, I called my parents. And the first thing I told my parents is, you know what, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be the best teammate I can possibly be. Yeah. And what I came to find out was that was my way of competing was I couldn't play, but I'm still a competitor. So how do you compete? Well, you go out there and you can compete with yourself and you try to be the best human being that you can be. And I think that kind of started this trend of making the game fun for me, enjoy being at the field. You're going to be at the field a lot. You're going to be there a long time. You're going to travel a lot. You're going to go to a lot of hotels. Figure out a way to make it fun or it's going to be miserable, right?
Yeah.
So I think that whole kind of thing can be said. And so I really enjoy the fact that some people will sit and listen to what I have to say and take my opinions and do what they want with them. But I think that's part of it is probably more so just that I enjoy it than anything else.
What was interesting for me is you talk about not playing a lot in the beginning of your minor league career, and it makes it really hard to kind of get those reps and develop and try to break through. And I know hitting's kind of secondary for catchers. We always talk about that. And there's just so much responsibility that goes into just being behind the dish and calling a game and all of the things that go with that. But at the same time, you still have to hit the baseball. And you really had a breakthrough offensively in 2014, which is interesting because you talk about not getting a ton of reps, and then you go up to the AA level, and in 53 games, you hit 319, 375, 500, which was in 150 plate appearances. Like, that's a pretty good sample size. What kind of clicked for you there? Because generally guys have figured something out in high A and then they get slapped in the face in double because it's just a different level. For you, it was like you got up to double and then you figured something out there, it seemed like, and then, parlayed that into a nice AAA season, and you haven't really looked back since. Was there something tangible that happened there, or was it a mindset? Was it a swing adjustment? What kind of clicked for you in 2014?
I think 2014, I really keyed in on one of the things the hitting coach at the time, Desi Wilson, kind of helped me focus on was coming up the bench. Pretty much all my at-bats were off the bench. And so when I would come off the bench, his big message was swing. Like, I would rather you swing at a ball in the dirt than take a fastball for a strike. So I started to do that more often. Kind of went back to who I was a little bit, I think, also just mentally. But honestly, I think 15 was where I kind of turned the corner and I just had a more consistent approach. I think 14, I had a good year. I had put some good at-bats together, but still, like, I understood, it's still only 150 at-bats. And honestly, in 15, spring training, somebody got hurt like right at the end of camp, or I probably wouldn't have even gone to AAA to start the year. But no, I really don't think it was anything more than like maybe understanding the fastball was such a big deal. You get to AA at that time, you got to AA, and the fastballs, that was where the fastballs really kind of came at you.
Yeah.
I always said there were no bad players in AA. There were guys in A ball that I would look at that not have been bad, but that I would have said, I don't know really. I don't know necessarily that you should have been here. When you get to AA, there's nobody that's like that. Right. And then you get to AAA and there's no holes in the lineup.
Yeah.
So, and now these teams are stacked. I mean, the pitching staffs are huge. The teams, COVID changed that though, because there was two groups of players, right? There was a group of players that should have developed to another level, and there was a group of players with an age gap that they needed to be at the next level. And so all these teams have this just like gluttony of players that are like 2.5 A that need to be in like AA plus.
Yep.
And so all these teams are just loaded. And I mean, it's fun to see, but it's just crazy. I mean, but the only thing that stinks is like, you're not getting to see relievers. You're seeing pitchers aren't throwing quite as many innings because the staffs are so much bigger, but
yeah. Two-parter. First part's a yes or no. Second part, I want you to get a little bit more in depth. The yes or no question, with obviously that COVID year throwing a wrinkle in everybody, and also just the sheer data and, like clinics and the drive lines of the world and the Cressies of the world. Like, I feel like they've made the overall talent level in baseball as high as it's ever been. Do you feel like baseball is more talented? The players are more talented than they've ever been before right now?
For sure. But I think that just athletes in general are more talented than they've been in the world. And I think I always point to college basketball and look at how many mid-majors are really good in college basketball right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's because mid-majors are recruiting any different. I think it's because there's that many more athletes that are that talented. The big thing I'll say about like the drive lines, the treads, I think treads are really cool. I haven't done a ton of research into it, but I do believe in pitch design. I think that's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Drive line, I don't necessarily know if I agree or disagree with their practices, but what I do agree with is that in any industry, in my opinion, you have to question the norm to grow. Whether it's right or wrong, you have to question it. And nobody had really questioned the norm. And he did that. And he questioned the norm, and we've grown because of it. I don't know that his data or his research has helped, but I do know that him just starting the process, Kyle Bodie just doing this, has changed the game. And yes, I think that people are more talented right now. I don't think the game is better right now than it's been.
Yeah.
I think that the talent level is probably as good as it's been in a long time.
Yeah. One of those guys you saw in 2020. And I know Aram loves him. I know that the rest of baseball is in awe of what he's done at double and triple this year. Said you spent 2020 at Baltimore's alternate site with a guy named Gunnar Henderson. How good can Gunnar be?
Gunnar has a chance to be a really special player. And I've told you in the past that I think Adley's one of the most talented human beings I've ever been around. The whole package for me, right? Behind the plate, at the plate, strength, speed, the mind, the person, he does it. The cool thing that I saw with Gunnar Henderson was when he was at the alt site in 2020, he came a little bit later. I believe he was 19. I think he was the second round pick was he the second round pick in 19? Was he the second round pick in 2019?
I think so.
19, I believe.
So I think he was 19 years old in 2020 at the alt site. And I think he had played at low A in 2019. And so he shows up at Bowie as he would be a college sophomore. It'd be his college sophomore fall where he probably wouldn't have played his freshman year. And he shows up and he's facing major leaguers. He's facing Grayson Rodriguez. He's facing DL Hall. He's facing Eric Handhold. He's facing a bunch of good arms. He's facing a bunch of guys that pitched in the big leagues that year for Baltimore and had pitched previously and this year for others. And for like 2 weeks, I sat with Ryan Fuller and watched him battle. I mean, he grinded. He was getting frustrated. And I looked at him. Me and Ryan were like talking about it. And I was like, we're going to see something out of him. We're going to figure out who Gunnar Henderson is. And Gunnar Henderson became Gunnar Henderson in those next 2 weeks. And I tell everybody that. Like, you saw him in the next, well, actually, it was probably closer to 6 weeks, become a man. Like, he started dominating those guys at the alt site as this 19-year-old kid, and he already had the size. You could already see that the frame was built to be a big-time player. I'll tell you the surprising aspect, not that he didn't have good plate discipline, but like the strikeout to walk stuff is just, that blows my mind. I saw that from Adley. I think Adley's got a chance to walk as much as he strikes out. Yeah. I didn't think that Gunnar would. I thought that Gunnar would be relatively average probably there on both, but good Lord, man. He's got a chance to be really special also. There's some guy, I mean, that's a really good system.
Oh my gosh, is it a good system? We were talking about that because they could really pull off a trade for anybody. And we know there's a big sweepstakes right now. And if they wanted to do it, they probably could. I don't think they should, because I think all of these guys could be legitimate, lineup pieces for them for the foreseeable future. But you talk about the walks and strikeouts. What really stands out to me with Gunnar's the swing decisions there. And also he just seems to have found what works for him. And just repeats his swing as well as any young player I've seen, in the minor leagues. But going into the alternate training site thing, a lot of people say similar things about Michael Harris and his experience there. Another high school guy who was thrown into the ringer there that kind of said, sink or swim, see how it goes. And he really impressed people at the alternate training site. We're looking at Michael Harris, basically mashing at the big league level. And it seems like that might've been a similar story there where he became a man, and it kind of allowed him to just not be afraid of another experience of playing at the highest level, even though you might have some of that question of whether you belong. Do you feel like the alternate training side out of something bad? Because obviously 2020 was horrible in a lot of ways, but even on the baseball side too. Do you feel like the alternate training site was a weird silver lining out of it? Because it seemed like for the players that were able to go there, it was a sink or swim, but for the guys who swim, could be career defining type of moments.
I said when I heard that that's what was happening, when we found out that the alternate site was going to be there, I initially was kind of scared because I thought the alternate site could work. And I didn't know what that meant for minor league baseball. Because if the alt site works, that could totally change how the game works. And, then you looked at, we did it again in 2021, right? We went in May. Guys were ready. And that was the point of the alt site. Guys were ready. You got somebody hurt. Somebody was ready to play in the big leagues. But no doubt did it immediately throw you in this competitive atmosphere where you could also develop. You were around really good coaches with really good players. So you were able to develop and you found out who you were. You got to compete. You found out if you were ready or not. And it told you, because you were getting 6 at-bats a day. And if you were pitching that day, you were throwing your 30 pitches or your 3 innings. It didn't matter what happened, So Yeah, I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. I don't think you could do it for a whole season. I think it would be too monotonous, but it was okay for a month.
Yeah, and you start to pick up on, certain pitchers' cues and things like that, and then it just becomes a battle of trying to figure each other out as quickly as possible, right?
No doubt. And like that's already a battle. Facing your friends for me is always tough because you always think they know something about you, so they're going to pitch you different. They always think, man, they know something about me. We're going to do something different at the plate. In all reality, 98% of the time, the right-handed pitcher is going to see you as the right-handed hitter, and the right-handed hitter is going to see you as the right-handed pitcher. It is no different than anything else. You need to prepare accordingly and not act like they're your friends and they know all your ins and outs.
Yeah. Something that we've talked about before we had you on the pod was how much you just love baseball in general. And, crazy, I know, right? A professional baseball player loving baseball, but you've told me some screenshots that you have of tweets about, anomalies that Babe Ruth put up in his career. Like, you love baseball history. It feels like you genuinely love everything about this sport. So, you're 32 years old right now. Do you see a world where you're not involved with baseball until you're done working?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I for sure want to stay in the game. I think right now, coming up early, I always said I wanted to be in the front office. I always said I wanted to be a GM. The longer that I've stayed on the field, the longer I really think I want to be a manager. The longer I am around guys, the more I'm in the clubhouse. Like, I really think I can make a difference off the field as well. So, like, that's something that excites me too. Like, I'm definitely excited for the next aspect whenever that comes. But yeah, I think I want to make a push for Major League Manager whenever that is. I don't know,
Yeah.
hopefully, like I said, hopefully I can play till I'm freaking 50 and we talk about this in 18 years, But
Yeah.
no, I don't know. But yeah, I am definitely more of a lifer than most. There's no question.
I hear you, man.
I love to hear that. And I think, we're seeing the approach, I think, to what kind of managers are being hired change a little bit. Younger guys are starting to get more of a chance. And I think that's something that is really interesting across the game. But of course, Jack's favorite team, the Chicago White Sox, maybe not adopting that strategy quite as much. But how do you feel about the impact that a manager can have on a team? Because this is something that, it's one of my favorite topics to discuss with Jeff Conine, who's our advisor at Just Baseball. And we have a podcast we do every once in a while with him. And, I always reference that 2003 season where the Marlins were horrible. They fire their manager. Jack McKeon takes over, and the rest is history. But he said, and Jeff Conine always maintains this, is that Jack McKeon didn't, wave a magical wand. Really, what he did was he just allowed the players to play and they felt comfortable. Is that the biggest job of a manager? And how much control do you think a manager has over, the success of a team? Because we're always on here. We have to talk about it after a guy gets fired, and we always have to debate whether it was justified or not and whatever it is. And I always say we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors, but I do think that managers tend to get scapegoated a little bit and maybe get a little bit too much credit sometimes when a team just is clicking as well.
No doubt. I've said that a lot, that I think that they get too much blame and too much love either way. But at the same point, like, that is kind of their job. They're the ones who are supposed to get blamed and are supposed to get loved when the team wins. I think exactly what you said is totally it. Is that the main job of the manager, to me, is to make sure the clubhouse is running right. For the most part, it's now with the DH, I think the manager's role went down a little bit again, obviously. But the bullpen, I think the bullpen usage is clearly, however you want to look at it. Like, I think surrounding yourself with the right people is just as important as making the right moves. So, like, the information that you're getting that is helping you has to be right also. So I don't think it's always their fault in making the pitching change. It could just be the information is not the right information. So I think that there's multiple things there, but no doubt, I think the most important thing is just making sure that the players are happy and that everything that they need is taken care of so they can go out on the field and do one thing, and that's win.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap, I've got a game for you. I've got your baseball reference page up here. I'm going to walk you through every year, and I want you to tell me every team you played for that year.
Okay. Oh, this will be easy. Yeah,
This will be easy. All right, 2011.
It should be easy. 2011. I played for the AZL Cubs only.
Yep. Well, you had a couple of non-professional stops in 2011. What were those?
Oh, 2011, Morehead State and Brewster.
Yep. There we go.
Then I went. So I'll just go down the list and you tell me when I'm off. Morehead State, Brewster, 2012, and then Arizona. 2012 would have been Peoria into Daytona. 2013 would have been was 2013 Daytona into Tennessee. 2014 was the only time I was somewhere it was the first time I was somewhere for the whole year. I was in Tennessee. 15, I went Iowa, Tennessee, Iowa, Tennessee, Iowa. 16, I went Tennessee, Iowa.
Hold on. What did you do between 2015 and 16?
DR. I played for La Romana.
Yeah.
And then in 16, I started in AA. So I started in Tennessee, went to Iowa, had a stop in Eugene in 2016.
And stole a base.
Wow. Yeah, see, 2016, big year. And the Cubs won the World Series. The last time I stole a base, the Cubs won the World Series. And then 2017, 2018, 2019, Iowa, Chicago, 2020, alt site, 2021, alt site, Norfolk, Indy, 2022, Indy.
That was impressive.
Don't forget about the 2 games in Pittsburgh last year, too.
Oh, yeah. Sprinkle those in. A couple hits off of Ranger Suarez, who had a 1-6.
Yeah. Hey, someone's got to do it. I got one last question, too, because you talk about, really helping your team win a ball game, and that's your goal, especially at the big league level. A really good way to do that is hitting a grand slam. And you did that off of Michael Wacha with the Cubs there. How could you just take us through to wrap it up? That's got to be the best moment ever, right? Can you just walk us through what that was like? You had a grand slam off of an established big leaguer to score Javi Baez and Kyle Schwarber and also David Bodie. That's as cool as it gets.
So I'm married with a son. So we'll go
baseball wise.
We'll go birth, wedding, grand slam. But the grand slam was really cool, although I blacked out. So the last thing I remember is watching Schwarber getting intentionally walked and thinking in my head, I'm gonna hit here, with the bases loaded in a sold out Wrigley Field in the middle of the day. This is incredible. And I knew that they were pinch hitting for you if I didn't get a hit. And so actually, if I didn't hit a grand slam, Darvish was not going to be able to go back out. So that was, all I remember, and the next thing I remember after walking to the plate is talking about the next 3 hitters in the dugout while I'm putting my shin guards on. I don't remember the middle. I don't remember anything else.
Dude, come on. How many times have you watched the replay of that?
I've watched the John Boy one a few times. I think it's pretty funny. But no, I mean, I don't watch a ton. I've watched my eye staring video probably more than I've seen the Grand Slam video.
Yeah. Quick backstory before we wrap there with the staring video. You were in Iowa, right?
Yeah, 2017. The year before, 2016, Chris DeGrone, who's now on the major league staff with the Mariners, just did some funny stuff whenever the camera was on him. And so I kind of took that from him and stared into cameras, and they did a compilation. And at the end of the year, they posted it. They told me, was it last year? I think she said it was still MILB's one of or the top most interactive posts of all time. She told me that in 2020 she was getting they were still getting emails or messages on Facebook about it once a month.
That's awesome.
Wow.
It's cool.
A showman, Taylor Davis. Hey, Taylor, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you.